Hello, curious souls. Today we're going to talk about Antoine Court de Gebelins. Antoine Court de Gebelins is known as the grandfather of occultism, or the occult. Either one really works. And Antoine Court, he started as a Protestant pastor, following after his father, of who had the same name, which is possibly why he added de Gebelins to the end of his name, as that was a name taken from his mother's side of the family. Anton Court did follow Protestant teachings all his life, but was also fascinated by the occult and did a number of works discussing an ancient belief system. He didn't believe that it was heresy or foul or witchcraft or anything like that. He just was fascinated by the ancient primeval and believed that it should have been brought back up. Anton Quartz de Gebelins stayed an interesting figure all through his life and could be discussed as a friend of many important figures, such as Benjamin Franklin and King Louis XVI. He was an advocate for American freedom, and he spent a number of his years, helping out his friends in the fields of medicine and science and, well, pseudoscience in a lot of ways. The works that he did having to do with the tarot are interesting because of a number of things. Mostly, one should note that all of his works suffered from a phenomenon known as egyptomania. Back in England, they thought that their entire culture could be traced in some way to Egypt, so they thought that was the place to start. This caused a number of specialists to assume, if they didn't know better, that it came from Egypt with its weird language and abilities and all this ancient technology. In Geblin's case, he thought that Egypt had an advanced society, both spiritually and technologically, more advanced than ours, and this was a society and culture that had fallen apart, but all of its secrets remained, just waiting to be grabbed on and held. Well, he wasn't exactly right. I explained before about how tarot came to be. Now, reading the cards came from Gebelins because he put tarot cards with a connotation towards Egypt, which caused people to want to pick them up and use them for cartomancy. However, before tarot was ever used for cartomancy, it was a practice to try and use cards to divine the future using the same practices. Now, one should note that, as with most divinatory practices, cartomancy doesn't have a huge success rate. Now, I explained last time about how I think it's a way to read yourself. Using tarot is kind of like looking into a mirror. It can be very helpful. Looking into a mirror allows you to see if you have a bruise, somewhere you normally wouldn't be able to see it. You can check your face. If you haven't slept, you can look for giant purple pits under your eyes. You can look at new wrinkles that have appeared. And these might be things that you don't normally see. In a number of ways, the way that I practice the tarot, I see it as a mirror used to look back at yourself. In that case, and although my offer to do someone a reading still stands, um, obviously doing a reading of cards to someone is a very personal experience. And the reason that Gebelins comes up is he associated cards into the mainstream as a way to divine the future. Now, there are already a number of ways to divine the future, and the reason that he looked at the cards this way is supposedly because he associated with the gypsies. Now, gypsy, the word gypsy, comes from the root of Egyptian. When some Egyptian roustabouts and travelers came through England, they were known kind of slangily as Gyptians, and this slowly, over many years, turned into gypsies. Egyptian, Gyptian, gypsy. So that's what gypsy is. That's where the word comes from. Although a number of gypsies in England had nothing to do with Egypt, it became a catch all for any kind of nomadic traveler through England, which there were a number. There were some from Romany, there were Jewish gypsies, and there were in fact Egyptian gypsies. Now, a number of them, while traveling on the road, did practice different forms of divination, often to try to get a little bit of money before they pack up and move on down the road. This was hardly ever cartomancy. Cartomancy was occasionally used, it was very rare. Most of the time, a gypsy would use palmistry to read someone's future. Not that it matters, because almost every form of divination has the same root and the same problem, which is you're not really looking for the future. You're just looking for some bipartial tool to help you understand the current situation and how it relates better. And if you buy into any of it at all, this is important because Gebelin's is wrong. The tarot has no original ancient history. It was designed as a amount of cards into the 14th or 15th century as cards used to play a game. And in fact, you can use a 52 card deck of playing cards from Hoyle in order to use cartomancy. It will not be the same as doing a tarot reading, but it's another way of using divination. And tarot should not be considered better or worse than using those 52 cards to do a divination. Now, for all that Antoine Court was wrong, the movement he created is why we have tarot as a popular theme today. And personal interpretation of art is a common theme on all kinds of tarot decks. Now, you might find yourself looking at a tarot deck of Thoth or a tarot deck of anything, really. There's tarot decks on Catholicism. Um, Catholicism's not a real religion. So, how can that be? Well, at that point, you're looking for imagery that you can relate to. Because when you're reading the tarot cards, most of the meaning is going to come from what you see in the pictures. Some of it may be more solid than that, but practitioners can't even decide what everything means most of the time. And you have to keep that in mind. Now, over the next few months and weeks and what have you, I will be going over the tarot deck. I just wanted to do a more in-depth explanation of Antoine Court and the gypsies and the correlation therefore and the movement caused by Antoine Court, and just briefly touch on the fact that if you're doing the tarot cards, don't do them just because you think it's some ancient and awesome practice. Do it for yourself and do it for the fact that you're picking up this new skill, because that is where you're going to find any success whatsoever. This is not a definite science, and if it was, someone would have won the $1 million that was put out by the Skeptic Society years and years ago. This is something different from that. And if you believe in it, you believe that it's intuitive anyway. Well, next time I might start looking at the actual cards themselves. I might take the deck apart and I might go through. I don't know what suit I'll start with, and I'm thinking I'll give an explanation of the different suits and how they might correlate when you're doing a reading. As always, if you can leave a video response, I would be happy to attempt to do a reading if I find a question that I deem worthy to do a reading for. I really hope that you keep following me and go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's right over there. And I'll be making videos hopefully every week from here on out. I do apologize about not getting back within a week's time. After my last video, I was spending a lot of time with my girlfriend. I think that's pretty understandable. Anyway, this is Will and Curious Souls. I encourage you to go out and research yourself, and until next time, be at peace.